As we come into our time of meditation before the message, I invite you, if you will, to pray with me and for me. That as I surrender, that Spirit will come through my words, my presence, inviting us to surrender together to that love that is who we are. I invite you to bring your attention to your breath. Nothing to fix or change, just to notice. Noticing your breath in, your breath out. Letting your gaze soften or your eyes close. Noticing all the places where your body is supported, where you sit. And scooching or softening and settling into even a physical surrendering, letting the tension, any place that's holding, letting it soften. There's nothing in this moment that you need to do. No other place that you need to be. Simply saying yes to Source. Consenting to your awareness of the presence, that sacred presence alive in you. Breathing as you. Deeper and deeper surrendering, softening, opening. Breathing in, peace is here. Breathing out, joy is here. In and out, peace and joy. Breathing in, compassion is here. Breathing out, loving kindness is here. In, out, compassion, loving kindness. And as you simply breathe, sensing that ebb and flow of the breath in and out. I invite you to take a deeper breath in now, filling your lungs, your belly, and feeling that exhale leave you with a sigh, a softening. And then as you're ready, coming back fully present to this space. To the presence of love here in this room. To the presence of love beyond this room. Thank you, Pete. Well, I had a little visual aid to bring in for show and tell today, and it's safe at home on my coffee table in my living room. That's okay, I wrote down the quote. I have a little hard-covered book that I bought from, my gosh, I think actually my mom got it for me when I was in high school. A little blank journal, but the title on it was Beginnings, a book of belonging. And in that, from the age of about 14 or so, I started capturing quotes and passages and memorabilia actually then from high school, kind of now moldy flowers tucked in its pages. But something that I read this week reminded me of one of those passages that I wrote in this little blank notebook when I was all of about 17. And I don't know where I saw it initially, but it is from spiritual seeker, brilliant mind, huge heart, Teilhard de Chardin. Someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then, for a second time in the history of the world, we will have discovered fire. Someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then, for a second time in the history of the world, we will have discovered fire. So I've been sitting with the image of a harness. A harness not as something restrictive, but as a tether to safety. Back in the day, my son Billy, who was probably 20 or 21-ish at the time, really was into the Albany Indoor Rock Climbing Gym, as well as actual rock climbing out in the world that I tried very hard as his mother not to think about. But he invited me one night when I was in the midst of very much a dark night of my soul, very unsure about what was next in my life. He's like, "Mom, you should come with me. Just come with me." So we went, and I was harnessed. Now you put your legs through the straps. It took me some doing to get myself untangled. And then I was connected with a clip to a belay rope. And as I carefully, one toe hold and finger hold at a time, tentatively at first, and then with a sense of awe that I was doing it, there was my son holding the belay rope, tethering me to him. So there's an image that I've been sitting with. And then what does it mean to harness the power, that first discovery of fire in the course of our human history, a spark, stone on stone, that lit something that transformed that spark and wood into warmth, into light, into a way to nourish ourselves as humans. Harnessing that power, how are we harnessed to each other? Do you believe the love I have for you? How are we harnessed to each other? Do you believe the love we have for each other? How are we harnessed to each other? And how are we harnessing the energies of love? So I invite you for just a moment to consider, who are those people in your close, intimate circles that harness you, who are the belay rope anchoring you as you are climbing that wall, maybe literally, maybe just figuratively? Who are those people who make you feel safe, connected? Who are those four-legged beings who keep you tethered and harnessed to that deep well of love? Who are the people that you tether? How are you an anchor, a harness, a belay rope in the winds and waves and storms of the world for somebody else? What does that look like in your life? And now let's widen that circle. Here in this Unity family, when you look around this room today, or you come to any of those great events that we just talked about earlier, you will look in that sea of beautiful faces, and there will be somebody there that you know pretty well. And there will be somebody there that you're maybe curious about getting to know better. There may be somebody living in community with you that sometimes yanks your chain, because that's also what we do when we live in community. Learning to soften our edges and how our edges get sharpened in community is part of what we get to do here. It's our weekly coming together to nourish and be nourished by music, by presence, hopefully by my grappling with whatever's been on my heart this week that I just lay before you, nourished by the conversations that happen downstairs, by the one-on-one prayer that happen here when you are open to sitting with someone who will walk with you in spiritual companionship in prayer. We tether each other, we harness that power in something like the fun, just plain old fun that happened here on Friday night. That somebody has an idea and somebody else says, oh, that sounds like fun, let's do that. And then somebody says, oh, I can help with that. Oh, I'll do this. Oh, I have an idea. And pretty soon magic has happened. Now let's widen that circle a little bit more again. Parker Palmer, another brilliant mind, a Quaker writer, in a post reflecting on Alexis de Tocqueville, a French political philosopher who visited our country, when it was young in 1831, and he wrote Democracy in America, which Palmer says is still one of the best books on what democracy is. And he reflects on that. These are Parker Palmer's words reflecting on this French philosopher. Among other things, Tocqueville argued that the future of the American experiment would depend on what he called the habits of the heart. Habits of the heart that are formed in the everyday venues of our lives. Family, friendship groups, neighborhoods, voluntary associations, city parks, downtown streets, anywhere and everywhere that people gather. And he asked, will those habits fit us for citizenship in a democracy, or will they bend and break us into subjects of an autocracy? Parker Palmer, inspired by that, writes in his own book, Healing the Heart of Democracy, about 5 habits of the heart that we need to cultivate if we want our democracy to survive and thrive. And I would suggest that the way we live in community here, the reason we have an election every March, as members of the board step away from that service and we elect new members onto the board for a circle of shared leadership, is an experiment in democracy. It's an experiment in a plurality of voices leading us forward. So here are these habits that make us fit for that way of life. This is a checklist, it's a quiz. See if you can check these off for yourself. And understanding that we are all in this together. We're all in this together. An appreciation of the value of otherness, of that unrepeatable expressionness of each other. An ability to hold tension, yes and, both and, paradox, to hold tension in life-giving ways. A sense of personal voice and agency, and a capacity to create community. I think we get at least a 100%, especially on number 5, a capacity to create community. Can we hold the tension of the paradox that there is no separation between myself and spirit or others? There is no separation, and yet, can we hold that deep awareness of the unrepeatable expressions of how we each show up in that oneness? The individual cells that make up the whole. Loving kindness meta-meditation harnesses us first to deep awareness of the peace and joy, the compassion that is ours. We start first, not just with the words, may I, but with an invitation to recognize at a deep level, to consent, to say yes to our awareness of that deep sacred presence in us that is our foundation of peace and safety and joy, compassion. And then from there, we extend that awareness of being harnessed in the everyday venues of our lives, first to those we love, right? The next round of that is may you, and we center in on those that are closest to us. And then maybe somebody that we recognize in our day-to-day that we don't have a real relationship with. They're kind of in a neutral spot in our lives, an acquaintance, somebody we see at the supermarket. And then we're invited to consider the sacred presence of all of those things in the beings that we don't find easy. Those beings that have maybe broken our hearts. Those beings that we look at and say, how have you forgotten that you are made in the image and likeness of love? And we are invited to harness the power of love for them too. To feel into that presence for all beings. From the first letter of John. How does God's love abide in anyone who has the world's goods and sees a brother or sister in need and yet refuses help? Let us love not in word or speech, but in deed and truth. And by this we will know that we are from the truth and will reassure our hearts before the Holy One. And from Mark, you shall love God, the Lord, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and all your strength. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. Who are our neighbors? Everyone is our neighbor. I am so inspired in that wider circle of our country, but what we are witnessing by everyday Minnesotans right now. Neighbors loving each other by showing up with their whole hearts, their souls, their minds, and their strength, singing, hold on, dear ones, here comes the dawn. Singing, lay down your weapons. You can change your mind. They are showing up with food, with grocery money. They are neighbors helping each other because that is what neighbors are called to do. How does God's love abide in anyone who has the world's goods and sees a brother or sister in need and yet refuses to help? So yes, I'm inspired as I look out, but I am inspired when I look in. I am so inspired right here in our Unity of Albany family and how we are growing those connections here in our own community and beyond. And the ways that folks show up for Focus and our neighbors through the larger city of Albany, for the way that folks show up to help with Family Promise, and for the connections we're growing with other faith communities in that way. Our cousins up the street, the UUs, the Unitarians, those lovely renegade Catholics at the upper room, the Inclusive Catholic Church. And all of those faith communities, our connection with our friends at St. Vincent's, and the other churches that are a part of the focus group. We are neighbors building connection. We have a huge capacity to grow community. That's our gift. We have a huge capacity to envision the world filled with loving kindness, with people who are awake to each other and have said yes to harnessing the energies of love. Not only when it's easy and fun, but yes, when it's easy and fun, but when it calls us to hold fast to that belay, to trust the safety of the harness that we are wearing so that we can harness that power of love. Wherever we are, God is. God, that name of the blanket we put over the mystery to give it shape, asks us, invites us to say yes. That's all. Ever present. But we have the agency and the voice and the power to say yes or no. The divine presence needs our yes. So what is ours to do? What is mine to do as we grow and transform and harness to each other and harness that love? Those are the questions that we mull over, that we let guide us into those words of our vision, prayer and service. Service that helps us see each other in wholeness and walk alongside each other. So to close, I have adapted one of my favorite poems. It is one that you have heard me use often, The Gospel According to Rosemary Watola Tromer. But it is about that question, and I've just tweaked the words ever so much. She asks, is this the path of love? But to tie it into that harnessing, I invite you to see how simple it is for us to find those ways to say yes. All day I replay these words. Is this how I harness the power of love? I think of them as I rise, as I wake, as I wash dishes, as I drive too slow behind the slow blue Subaru. Is this how I harness love? Think of these words as I stand in line at the grocery store, as I sit on the couch. Amazing how quickly those words become compass, the new lens through which to see myself in the world. I notice what the question is not. Not, is this right? Not, is this wrong? It just longs to know how the action of existence, the being, it just longs to know how the action of existence links us to the power of harnessing the energies of love. And is it this? Is it this? All day I let myself be led by the question. And all day I let myself not be too certain of the answer. Is it this? Is this how I harness the power of love? I ask as I wait for the next word to come. And so it is. Amen.